right, welcome. Whether you're watching on Zoom or YouTube Live, yeah, we're going to have another really good training working group webinar here. Let me find my slide controls. Yeah, so we welcome you to this. We do this rolling series of training working group webinars where we introduce different topics, whether that's editors or styles of mapping, like validation, those kind of things. Forgive the background noise. Hopefully you don't hear too much of the commotion going on downstairs, but just to introduce you this time around to the ID editor. This is actually the first time we've done the ID editor. We normally do introduction to JOSM, as it's a little bit more complex and needs a little bit more introduction, but as ID continues to be developed on, it is now becoming more and more robust, and we figured it was time to also start training on the ID editor. A little bit about our presenters. I mean, I'll just quickly show you this slide, and then they can introduce themselves as they come up to speak. But we have Jeffrey, Ralph, and Michael as part of the training working group as presenters, and myself, Russell Defner, as host. I used to be active in the training working group, but then I moved to the Philippines, and time zone wise, it's just not conducive anymore. So yeah, I'm happy to help them by hosting, but they are the experts now and have put together this training program for you. Just briefly, the agenda, we're going to teach you how to get to ID itself. There's a couple different ways that you might discover the ID editor, and then go into an overview of the buttons and controls and how things look, and then get into basic editing with the ID editor. And then finally getting into how to handle the errors and warnings as you go to uploading or saving to OpenStreetMap. So with that, Michael is up first, and let me stop sharing my screen so he can take over.
Yeah, welcome also from my side. I'm currently chairing the training working group, and so we can dive into the subject. So I hope that you can see the OpenStreetMap website with a map. That is one of the options, of course, how you can get to ID. The only prerequisite is that you must be logged in. So if you don't see your account up here, then you will first have to log in. Once that is accomplished, well, you can go anywhere where you'd like to map. Maybe you see a map like this where roads and buildings have already been mapped, but you might have the feeling something is missing in here. Then we've got the Edit tab here on the upper left, and you simply select Edit with ID. You're in Browser Editor, and then it'll come up. And yeah, that's one of the traps and pitfalls I'd really like to start with. You see the road network, but hey, where are all the buildings we've seen so far on the map? And yes, in order not to adversely affect the performance of the editor, they decided to hide features once the number is going too great. So you see this blue box with 515 hidden features, and that means you have to just zoom in a little bit. Now this number decreases, and now it's gone. And then we can see that, well, there are also some buildings visible. Better to see if we go closer down here. So just to give you a little overview how this all looks like. So first of all, here in the top, we've got an area where you can select between different drawing modes, points, lines, and areas, as these are the major constituents of a map. Once you've done some edits, you will see that there is undo and redo available, and also save, which is, well, the most important step, because of course we want that all our edits end up in the OpenStreetMap. Here on the right, you've got a couple of options and other features. Zooming in and out, well, that's certainly much more convenient with a mouse wheel. Then we've got the background settings. This is pretty important because when you're mapping in a humanitarian context, and I will talk about that in a short while, then people will always tell you which kind of background imagery you should use. If you're mapping just for your own, well, of course, the selection is yours, but typically Maxa, Premium, and Bing are among the best available. So this should be the first two which you'd like to inspect and see if they offer sufficient quality for mapping. In these background settings, you can scroll down a little bit. And so here you've got something where you can adjust the imagery a little bit in terms of its presentation. And further down, there is something about imagery offset. And Jeffrey will talk about that in the last part of this webinar. Apart from the background, there is another pane called map data. Well, basically, the main point here is that you can switch on and off the OpenStreetMap data. So if there are a lot of things already mapped, it might sometimes be preferable to have a look at the imagery without all the map data. So that's where you can switch between that. There are also a number of style options. Well, currently these are not very much in use because wireframe is simply too thin. So typically you will just switch between different imagery layers and switch these data later here on and off. The next icon here is about issues. That's another point which Jeffrey will inform you about. Issues will tell you what you might have been doing wrong and other problems. The preferences are not widely used so far, just a little bit about privacy. But another interesting part in here, the help screen. First of all, it only gives you a very rough overview about editing works, but what is really interesting are the keyboard shortcuts. And you will love them whenever you are a bit more advanced because they can accelerate your process quickly. And there are 3 images here. For instance, how to select the different drawing modes, how you can toggle the background panel, and as far as browsing is concerned, you can also toggle a couple of other panes. So you will soon find out that it is really preferable to know at least some of these options. So the keyboard shortcuts here in the help pane, that's something you should familiarize yourself with. And on the left part, there are properties for objects. Well, but before we can use them, we will have to deal with objects and we will have to generate some objects. And yes, here in the lower part, you can see, well, this is just a distance bar and a few other informations where you can, about the version number. So as I already said to you, there are 3 different kinds of objects which we will deal with: points, lines, and areas. The point is the simplest object, and it could be used for place names or for shops, restaurants within buildings. So these are typically items which you don't use when you are remotely mapping, but there you will mostly need information on the ground. So that means if you would know that this building, for instance, here contains a restaurant, then you would add a point simply by clicking with your left mouse in here, and then you've got a point. And of course, as an isolated point, it only contains geographical coordinates and not much more information. So you'll have to make the point clear what it is like. And that's what this pane on the left is good for. So once you've done editing and adding a point or a line, it will offer you a couple of selections what you can assign to this point. So for instance, if we know that is a restaurant, you would simply select a restaurant, and then you see that the icon here turns into a restaurant. And if you know more about it, you could add names and other information. As I said to you, in humanitarian contexts, we don't that often use the points. Lines is something, well, all roads are lines, or at least most of the roads are lines. Lines are also used for waterways and for railways. So that's one of the more common features. So, yes, highways, both roads and footpaths, of course. So just a little bit. So if you would add a footpath, let's say you would see a clear footpath in here. Let me just, yeah, sounds better in here in this area. So there is a small highway which accesses these fairly new buildings which haven't been mapped so far. So you select the line, and then, for instance, you start in here, draw it down here. Just click where you want to make intermediate points. And well, as we'd like to draw a highway, we have to make sure it is connected to the network. Otherwise, an isolated highway won't be of much use. So once we're done finishing, we end it with a double click. And then, yep, we have to assign highway. So this certainly is not a major road. It's one of the minor roads. And in this way, as it accesses buildings, this would be classified as a residential road. So this is about what we can do when we are mapping remotely. So many of the additional information you can put in here, whether it's a one-way road or what the name of it is, or some speed limits or maybe access restrictions, that's typically nothing we can see from aerial imagery. And you don't have to fill in anything in here. Only fill in anything in here if you're really sure what it is. So, well, if it's a bridge, then we can do something about that, of course. But as far as this goes, this is all we can do. And the third point here are areas. And areas is when you're starting with mapping within the context of HOT, will be one of your most important bits, because that's what buildings are. Buildings are closed lines or areas. So let's have a look at this one here, for instance. And yeah, that's quite a good imagery, because there is something important I can tell you in this context. First of all, we select the area, and typically, well, the roof offers the best option to get an idea of the geometry. So again, we've got 4 points in here. And with a double click on the last one, I close that. So the first thing here is that we should determine that it's a building. So we've got the building features in here, and then we say it's a building. Well, we always classify things like that as a generic building, because we don't know about the character of the building. If you have more information on the ground, you might specify that it's, for instance, a commercial building or an administrative building or whatever. We don't know that in here. Point number 1, it is important, as I've shown you in these 3 examples for the point, the line, and the area, that you always assign properties to these features, because a line as such doesn't tell you anything. We need to make sure that people know what it is good for. In this case, that is a building, and not maybe just a park or a forest. Next, we should really try to map and to match the building outline properly. So we can safely assume that most of the buildings we see are rectangular. Well, my sketch here isn't certainly rectangular, but there is something you can do about it now. With the right mouse, you can get an editing context menu. And this one here says square. So there's also a shortcut Q. And if you activate that, it makes it a perfectly square building. Now we've got another problem. We map the roof, because there we can see the geometry properly. If you look at professional maps, no matter what kind of objects they always show the footprint. And it is really important that the next thing we do is we move the building. There's also a shortcut M. And now put it here, use this corner use the lower left corner, for instance, for alignment. Now we know that this building here, our shape matches the footprint. This is, well, the more important, the taller the building is. Look at this building here above. there's a substantial difference between the position of the roof and the position here of the footprint. And if taller buildings are close to each other and you don't observe that rule, you will have difficulties in drawing highways and footpaths between the buildings. So always make sure that your geometry is here on the ground. So, and as I've told you before, now that we've mapped a couple of bits, there is an undo in here, and there is also a save button. When you are mapping buildings which might be close to each other or close to another road, there's another issue which you might see. So when I'd like to start here with this one, then my mouse will easily snap to this road. That's not something we really want, because buildings and roads hopefully never intersect in reality. So in this case, you should hold down your Alt key, and then you can move very closely, maybe zoom in a little bit, and you don't get any snapping issues. And then you can try to match this geometry here. As far as the roof is concerned, now we're done. This is another building. Now you see those features which you selected last time are arranged here at the top, so you don't have to click through a hierarchy of something, just say it's a building. Don't forget to hit Q to square it. Hitting M for move, we can move it down so that we're here at the bottom, and now this is the footprint of this building. So when it comes to mapping here, I think the most important bits are, once you've done the geometry, make sure that you assign a feature type to it so that people know what kind of geometry that is. And once it's a building, make sure that you match the building footprint. And please, unless you can see very clearly that the building is not rectangular, assume that it is rectangular, and make sure that you all have rectangular angles in here by squaring the building. So, and don't forget to zoom in so that you can see really everything. Zooming out again will certainly at some stage pop up this blue warning that there are hidden features. And in the end, you would save that. There is another avenue how you can get to the ID editor, and that is what you will mostly use in the context of humanitarian mapping. So, and that is if you map through HOT's tasking manager. So let me just, so the main page, I think many of you will be familiar with it, means you select explore projects, and then you can, for instance, go for beginner mapper projects, and there are a couple of other filters you can look for, and then you will find one of the projects which are not completely here in red or in dark, but those projects where still a substantial portion of light gray is visible. This means there is still something unmapped. For instance, as in this project, which I selected for you. So then once you're in a project, you simply select one of you can select a particular task and then say map selected task. And with your ID editor, well, first of all, it looks pretty similar. You've got the main editor window in here, you've got the feature pane in here, but in this case, you also will see that there is another pane here on the right, which controls the interaction with the tasking manager. So you can review the instructions, which is very important. Always read the instructions which tell you what kind of imagery to use, in this case, Maxar Premium, and they will also tell you what you should map. So in this case, this project is about buildings. They say, roads, please only adjust them if they are, well, if they cross your way if you want to draw a building. Anything else should be mapped separately. Again, you will have to zoom in a little bit. Okay. And yes, so when you're mapping with a task manager, you use total square. This is the area of your task. This is which has been reserved to you, so please don't map anything outside this task. And in this case, you would then, as usual, select an area and then start mapping again, as I've just shown you before. And whoops, what happened in here? Previously, you've seen quite a lot of features to select from, and now that's only a building. And this is something you will encounter pretty frequently when mapping through HOT's tasking manager, because project managers have the ability to restrict the number of features to select from. This just reduces the option to select something erroneously. So it's a buildings only project. And in this case, the project manager made sure that we can only map buildings. Don't forget to square it. And as you can see, ID maps all those buildings in a slightly brownish color. And that might sometimes make it a bit difficult to figure out, well, has this one already been mapped, or is that simply a brownish shape as it looks like in reality? So if building roofs look like this, that's one of the good options where you can scroll down to your background and simply reduce the saturation. So you turn it more or less black and white, the background imagery, and there you can clearly see the areas which have already been mapped. So with colorful background, this might help a little bit to determine which objects are left to be mapped and which have already been mapped. And so once you're done with this, you simply click on save, and then you should always add a change set comment. So in this case, don't mess around with any of these hashtags. They are important for statistics, but yeah, added building or buildings is something you would write in this case, and then say upload, and then your changes will be uploaded. Always write something meaningful here. That's for the change set with OpenStreetMap. And other people who look maybe at this area in OpenStreetMap and wonder what you've been mapping there, they can read what you've been doing here. But then you're not done. There's this completion tab, which is the initial one. So you have to inform the tasking manager what you've done with this project. So the first question is it completely mapped? This is quite obviously not the case. A couple of buildings have been mapped, but not this one. So you say no. You would add a comment, maybe also add a building or something like that. And then you submit the task, which means it's open so that other people can get back to it. And well, you could select another task. Just go somewhere I want to show you a thing. Yeah, so yes should only be used if the task is completely mapped. Oh, that seems to be a good example, because looking here at the imagery means this is just forest. There are absolutely no buildings in this area. Just make sure that you don't overlook some isolated dwelling here in the center, but it's fairly obvious that, yep, this one here doesn't contain any buildings. I've seen people designating this as the imagery is bad. Of course, this is not the case. You would say it's completely mapped and just say no buildings or something like that, so that someone who takes a second look at this knows that well, this is your opinion, there was nothing to do, and submit that. Well, these are the basic points which should help you get started. I think my colleague Ralph will then be happy to introduce you to some more details concerning buildings, highways, and waterways. But I think yeah, maybe we should first see if there are some questions.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Michael. I don't see any questions. So I have a question for the audience. I'm going to launch a poll here. Let's see what the first one should be. I think we'll first. This is kind of a question we typically ask our JOSM users because they're often have a little bit more experience. But I'm just curious of your length of OSM history. And in this case, yeah, probably a lot of people will be maybe less experienced than our JOSM users. But I'm also, I'm curious to see, I'm starting to see some of the older folks, not older necessarily in age, literally, but the folks that have been in the OpenStreetMap community for longer. I figured there'd be some that have, just used other editors before ID was even created and are, kind of just curious about it. So yeah, it's actually a pretty good ratio of variety of years. But also, yeah, feel free to pop in questions. Oh, we just did get a question. Michael, if you want to take the in the Q&A panel. Or would you want me to read it to you?
Well, just yeah, there was some, Anna Maria was asking whether someone is checking a completed task. Well, currently, Ralph, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we are currently at validation rates of something around 90% in our projects. So the probability that someone will have a second look is pretty high. And yes, so currently there will be a second and even a third look at most of the tasks, but of course there is no guarantee.
Yes, that is correct. I think for some of the bigger projects, we're up at 75% of validation, and a lot of the others we do 100%. And plus, of course, there's another look over the projects before we archive them, so they do get checked.
Great. If there's no other questions, and I'm going to go ahead, we've got 63% of the attendees have already put in their answer to the poll, so I think I'll just go ahead and end it to quickly show everybody, as assumed, there were quite a few people in their sort of first year of OpenStreetMap experience, and then a few here and there along the rest of the spectrum there. So yeah, interesting to note that I didn't know if it was going to be all like all new people or if we would have a spread. So thank you for participating in that. And with that, see Michael's stopped sharing his screen. Ralph, if you want to take over.
Yes, okay. Hi, everyone. I'm going to take you through. Michael has been doing a very good job of how to use the various tools. And I'm going to start screen sharing now. So please just bear with me while this happens, and I'll take you through a few more details. It's giving me the option of, there we go. Right, hopefully you can see the map of the world. This is the OpenStreetMap.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. Then I'll go straight in. Remember, you were told there were two different ways of getting in to use ID editor or to map on OpenStreetMap. I'm going to use both of those, and I'm going to show you. I've got somewhere where I want to go just to help you understand some of the complexities. I'm going to go to a place called Delgerzocht. Now that is in Mongolia. And we're going to go here. So I've arrived at my place. I can see it tells me this is the village of Delgatsocht. That's where I want to go. And it zooms into that. I don't need this now. So I'm going to go up to the top here, as Michael showed you, and select my ID editor. Please be patient, right, as we zoom into edit. As you can see, we are zoomed out, so all the features are black. And my side panel here is closed. I have got this area. Now, this is what I want to start working on. Right. Looking at this area, the different imagery, you can see here, I have got, please remember shortcut keys, they work for you. I've got Maxar Premium imagery here, and you can see there is quite some detail here and quite good color. If I go to Bing aerial imagery, I get something completely different. So just remember, the imagery that you're asked to map to is important because the project creator has looked for the best and the most accurate imagery for you to use. So please use the imagery that is that you're told to use, and that is in this panel on the right-hand side here. Or you can select your own at this stage, looking at that. Now, this does not have the panel on the side that you're used to in the ID editor. That's because you haven't gone in through the project manager. The project manager gives you that extra panel on the side. Okay, so just remember that. We can see here the architecture type changes from country to country, from imagery to imagery. This is not very good on Bing. So I'm going to go back here, but I'm not going to click on there. I'm going to press B on my keyboard, and it automatically opened this up, and I'll go to Maxar. And here's what I wanted to show you. The round buildings here are called gers, and those are a tent-like structure like a yurt. And we can actually tag them as building equals ger, G-E-R. So have a look around at different parts of the world, get used to the different kinds of features there and try drawing them, because that will get you the best experience possible. Or if you're quite happy with what you're doing, just stick in the area that you are doing and just keep mapping. Right, now I'm going to not to do any mapping here. I'm going to go to the tasking manager and do some mapping from the tasking manager. Right. I'm going to go to here, and I know the project that I want to go to. Oh, come on. That's not what I wanted. 9582. Okay. And this is in Botswana in South Africa. And it here, it says you are only mapping buildings, but I'm going to do a demonstration for you of other features as well. But let's just see if we can do that. Okay, I'm in here now. I'm going to go to contribute. And these pink areas here are areas of high importance, and they would like those to be mapped first. But remember, you are volunteers, and it is your option as to where you map. Now I'm going to go to a specific task. So I go to tasks here, and I type in the task number I want to go to. If you were working on a task and you need to go away, you haven't finished it, remember the task number that you were working on, because you can always type it in here and it will take you back to that task, and you can start mapping on that task again. I've clicked on this and I can see that there it is highlighted in black. I have to be careful because I can see that there are other people mapping all around here, and I've got one person who is mapping right next to me. So when I extend down out the bottom of the project, the task area, I have to save my work quickly because this person may also be mapping at the top here. So we have to be very careful when we have people around us mapping, and this happens when there's a mapathon on, or it is an urgent project. So be careful about people mapping around you. I'm going to go to maps. Oh, I don't want to do that. I have down here, it says your editor. Now I am always mapping in JOSM, so it has JOSM down there. So I'm going to go back because I will be showing you in ID. So I'm going to change my choice of default editor to ID, and that is done in your settings from the top right hand corner here. And once I've done that, I have set my settings. I will go back. And I can see now that it tells me that my editor is the ID editor. So when I want to map this selected task, it will automatically take me to the ID editor. Right, here I am in the ID editor, and I have got my task. And remember, I said there was no panel on the right when you go in through OpenStreetMap. There's the panel on the right when you go in through the tasking manager. Now, you can close these down if you want the area, but if you close these down, you are going to want to remember the shortcut keys. I think I posted a link to shortcut keys in the chat, so have a look there, and that will take you to a list of shortcut keys that are helpful for you. Right, I'm just going to show you what happens if you want to enlarge your screen simply by using the shortcut key F11. I will press that now. If I close those down, F11. Sorry for being so slow. And that gives me the full screen. Can you see this? I am now in the full screen. So if you have a small screen and you want to get rid of the stuff around, if you want to get back to your ordinary screen again, you just go to F11 and press F11 again. And it takes you back to this area here. So F11. Now, one of the things I want to show you is when you're drawing waterways, the most important thing is getting the direction of flow. And to understand the direction of flow of waterways, you have to zoom out, because then you can work out whether the waterway is flowing down towards a major waterway, and down towards a major waterway, and down towards a major waterway. So all of them will be flowing downhill towards a major waterway. So look for that, zoom out. Zooming out helps you to find that, so that when you're zoomed into your task, you will know the direction of flow of the waterways. I'm just going to close this side panel so that we've got more room. Okay. Now, if you want or find that you cannot work out from just zooming out which is the direction of flow, there is something else that can help you. Remember, shortcut B, press B, and this opens up. And if you go to the Open Topo Map here and select that, the Open Topo Map has got contours on it. And these contours have heights. And those heights tell you that the flow downhill. So this says it is 840 and it runs around here. So if I zoom out a bit, so that's the 840 contour, and that one says 850. So the flow of water will be down in this direction, going between the 840 contours, and there's an 830, so it gets even lower down here. So it will be flowing down between the contours here. Okay, now if I get rid of that, so I go back to my Maxar Premium, and I have now established that the flow of water goes down in this direction. So I know which way to draw my waterway. I zoom in so that I can see the waterway clearer. That's a good indication of a waterway, is when you see green shrubbery around the direction of. Okay, so if I want to start, remember you were told shortcut keys, the line key is shortcut key 2. So every time you want that, you just press 2 and your cursor changes and you can draw waterways. Now, zooming in, I pressed B to get rid of that. What I do is I don't make short little even steps. What I do is I take it close as it goes around a corner or a bend, but I use long sections where it is along a straight section, so that we minimize the number and usage of the nodes. That helps with storage. Right, as I said, I'm going to select this now. The line, it tells me here, line has no tags. You can see there's a warning down the bottom here. So I want to add this, and I'm going to search for a stream. Okay. All right. So let's do waterway. Okay, this is restricted, so I can't do that. Remember, this was a buildings only, so it's restricted. So I'm doing this a different way, waterway feature, and all right, it's not going to let me tag it because this project is restricted to buildings only. Okay, so there you can see that there is a problem for tagging that, and it is restricted, but that is your waterway, and you would tag it in the normal way. It would come up under these if it's not restricted. So I'm going to now tell you that there are 3 ways that waterways and roads intersect. It's important for you to know this because it will always come up as a fault if it's not, and we would have to correct it. So let's draw in a road, line feature 2, and this is not going to work here, escape, because I am not being able to select those. So I'm going to go out of this, go back to my explore projects. And I'm going to, first of all, remember difficulty level, beginner mapper. Okay, and let's go to Kenya. Here we have a overflowing dam, and of course, everything will happen down Waterway. I think this won't work because I had a task selected before. Let's just see. Let's go to 628. Projects. Oh, sorry, I didn't log out of that last task, so it didn't happen. So I'm going to beginner mapper and once again go to Kenya. And map a task. 1075. Oh, this is right. Let's try again. Right, we're in. Okay. Here we have, I select my line tool. So that's press 2 on my keyboard and I map the road. And end that, and it says line, and that is a highway. Oh, highway and unclassified. Okay, now you see a warning, it doesn't join up. So I need to continue that and link it up with another road. Now, the important thing here about linking is to make sure that it does link, okay? You see, that is joined up. If I undo that, and I'll show you how that happened, I right-click here to get my function. I continue this, and when my cursor goes onto the other road, you'll see that all the nodes along that road light up. If that does not happen, then you're going to miss the road and you're not going to link. So to be able to link to the other road, please click once the other road nodes have highlighted, and you click twice and that ends it. Okay. Now there's the waterway. I'll press 2 on my keyboard again, and I'm going to put in the waterway. Double click to end. Waterway, and I'm going to say that's a river. Well, let's say stream. Okay, right. Now, there's 3 ways that this joins. The road goes over on a bridge. The waterway goes under, which is then through a culvert, or the road runs through the waterway. And that is going to be a ford. So I've got a minor unclassified road, and it tells me straight away connecting using a ford or add a bridge. Now I want to add a bridge. So let's add a bridge. And it gives me a section here. Now I can adjust this. Now what is this section given me? It has told me that this is a bridge. Let's have a look at the tags. It says it is a bridge, highway unclassified, and the layer has got to be +1. And the bridge, we're just going to say is yes, because we can't see what type of bridge it is. Sorry. Bridge, yes, and layer 1. 1 says it's above the water. So that works well. You can adjust the length of the bridge to suit. Please check the length of the bridge, because when you add the bridge that way, it just selects a set standard size. So that would be the bridge. Now, if I select the waterway, it tells me that the waterway is not connecting with the road properly. So I need to do something. If it's a culvert and the waterway runs under the road, you add a tunnel, okay? And that gives you a section of tunnel underneath, which is called a culvert, tunnel culvert, and the layer is -1 because it's below the road. So there we have it. Now you can, once again, you can select the length of the culvert and get that correct, okay? And that will then be your culvert. Now, if I get rid of that and go to the third option is when the road and the waterway are at the same level. Now you can see if I've got the road selected, it does give me the option to connect as a ford because the road runs through the waterway. If I select the waterway, it also gives me the option of using a ford. That's because they're both at the same level, and the symbol is a node that connects the two. So I'm going to connect using a ford. Now you can see that there is a little symbol here that shows as a ford, and it is on the road. And it does not have a layer. If I click on that, it says Ford, yes. It does not have a layer because the road and the river are at the same height, at the same level. The road runs through the water. Okay. If this waterway is intermittent, it may very well mean that that crossing is dry most of the year round, or certainly it's only wet in the wet season. Now, that gives you some idea of the waterway road connections. You can easily see where waterways are and work out their direction of flow. If you're zoomed out, there's a major river down there, and you can see they all flow towards the major river. Now, how to identify the difference between a road and a track in a rural area? Main or major roads are pretty well defined, whether they have a hard top or whether they're just ordinary sand or gravel. You can see here, this is quite a main road. That's quite a main road. This one is a tertiary. So I would draw this one as unclassified because I don't know from my task square whether it is going to another town or whether it's just a road through the countryside linking everybody. In the case of here, I can see that there is wide enough road coming up here. So that would be a residential because it feeds this, and that would be a path because it's quite narrow. So in residential areas, the roads would be classified as residential, as Michael said, but in the countryside, those roads that link you through the area should be unclassified and not track. A track is a private road for the farmer to get to his fields, to work on his fields. It's a private road for all the people who are working in forestry. So it gets you around the forestry. It's not in a game reserve. A game reserve would possibly be a service road because it's also on a private property, but it is a usable road that is not for farming or forestry. And members of the public will use that to access the area they want to get to. So those are the three classifications you would use in a rural area. That's an unclassified road, a track, or a service road. Right, I think I will end off at this moment in time and pass you back to the host and to ask you whether you have any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Ralph. That was great. I think Michael actually answered most of the questions, if not all of them. So I guess let me just open it to the audience again. If your questions weren't answered via text while Ralph was talking, feel free to type them in now and we can handle them. And in the meantime, we'll get Jeffrey set up for the last section of the webinar. So Ralph, whenever you're done there, you can stop sharing, and Jeffrey, feel free to grab hold of the screen when you can. And in the meantime, I'm going to ask another poll question. This one is just about how you heard of the webinar. And And I guess Ralph too, if you want to look through the Q&A panel and just see if there's any of those you wanted to address further. Okay, well, I want to give Jeffrey nearly a whole half hour, so looks like we got about the same percentage of people that have participated in the poll as last time, about 63%. So I'll end that now. And it looks like, yeah, the majority of folks actually saw it on social media, and then another handful word of mouth, and then some others. So those of you that had the others, I would be interested to know what where you did hear it. So if you want to either use the QA or the chat panel to tell me how. Otherwise, Jeffrey, I think we're ready for you to take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Russ. Yeah, for my part, I just want us to take us to an island called South Tarawa, which is located in a country called Kiribati. So let's head there and do some mapping. So yeah, I'm trying to zoom in. As you can see, my edit button here is not active, but once I zoom in some more, it will become active. That means it will allow me to go into edit mode. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and choose the ID editor, which will bring me from the map into editing mode. So I can see some features already loading. And as I zoom in some more features will be appearing. So yeah, what you see here is features which have been mapped, but it looks like they are not aligned well with the imagery. So yeah, that happens very often, especially if there was some mapping that was done previously using another imagery. So as you can see here, when I change to Bing imagery, it shows that the buildings are aligning well, but you may want to update the map using another imagery, and you may realize that they don't align well. So what do you do in that case? In that case, you'll have to correct the imagery offset to be able to continue to map. So what I will do is to go to my background settings here. So right below here, there is like a few more options. So there is display options, there's overlays. So I'll go to imagery offset here. And that is going to give me an option to correct the offset. So what I want to do is to make sure that these buildings that were drawn, these features that were drawn, match the existing imagery. So what I'll do is to point in this gray area, and you'll see my cursor changing there. So if I move it, you are going to see the imagery also changing. So I just have to move it until yeah, the features do match. And then I will release it, and then I'll continue my mapping. So that's how you correct imagery offset to be able to continue mapping when you're working with different imageries. So what is not advisable is for you to move objects to that have been mapped to match the imagery. What is advisable is for you to move the imagery to match the existing data. So meaning that at this point, I can continue my mapping. And of course, you have a few other options that you can do with your imagery. You may want to tweak it if it's not very visible. You may want to reduce or increase the brightness. You may want to change the contrast to make it more clear, even the saturation and the sharpness, like Michael was showing us. So just a few things there to do with your imagery. So the other thing that I want to show us is just around warnings and issues that may arise when you are mapping. And I just want to demonstrate using just a few objects here. So the one which is most common is when you are doing the actual mapping. So I'm just going to choose area here and just draw one building here. So I've drawn my building here, and I may want to square it as well. So after drawing it, of course, you may want to save your feature that you have drawn. So if I try to save here, I'm going to see a warning and or an error. And what this means is that I've not added the tags to my feature. So when you see errors and you see warnings, try to go back and fix them. So what I will do here is just come here and click on area has no descriptive tags. And this will zoom into my area, and it will allow me to add the tags. So it asks me either, there are two options. You can either select a feature type, or you can delete this feature. So I'm going to go ahead and select area and then building. So right now my feature that I've drawn, if I try to save again, it will not complain because I have added the tag. The other warning or issue that you may face is when you try to do to draw a building and it is crossing another feature. So yeah, let me just try to replicate that. So I'm just going to pretend there is a building here, just to show you that. So I'm just trying to draw something. I'll not delete, upload it, but just show you. So if I try to tag this as a building, you're going to see several issues popping up here. And it is telling me building crosses a minor or unclassified road. So when you're using the ID editor and it detects some issues, it will give you a warning. We also saw this when Ralph was showing us how to draw the road, and the roads were not connected, but were near each other. So the ID editor was still issuing a warning and say, this needs to be connected. So it's the same issue here. It's saying, a road should not be going across a building. So we need to fix this. So it is giving us a few options. I can either tag this as higher or as lower, because there's some buildings where there may be like a tunnel below, or I can reposition. So yeah, sometimes what you may do is to just move the road or move the building, just to make sure they don't overlap. So in this case, I will go ahead and right click and just use this move feature option and put it away up from the building. So meaning that now there will be no issue when I'm uploading my changes. Yeah, but since there is no actual building here, I'll just go ahead and delete this feature. So that's one way you can see issues and fix them when you are doing mapping. Don't ignore the issues that you see, because also we want to make sure that the data we are adding to OpenStreetMap is good quality. The other way you are going to find issues in your ID editor is by using this feature here, which is issues. And like Ralph said, already take a note of the shortcuts. So the shortcut for issues is I, meaning that if you press I, it will show you the issues in this area. So I may want to see issues in this area. So if I press I here, I'm going to see several warnings, but it has also several options. So if you want to see only your edits in this view, whether they have issues, so you can also choose to say, okay, check my edits in this view. You can also say, check my edits everywhere. So it will check all your data that you have in this map and try to point where you have issues. I may want to see all edits in this view that may be having issues. So that's what I'm trying to choose here. So yeah, at this zoom level, I can see there are several issues which I may want to fix. Yeah, this one is residential road crosses building, building crosses residential road. So if you want to fix any of these issues, I just have to click on it and then it will zoom there. So I see, yeah, this is blinking where the issue is. And then I can either move the road or I can move the buildings just to try and fix that issue. So I try to put it to Bing, see if it's a bit more clear there. Yeah, so I can move this road so that it doesn't go over buildings. So I've just moved this road a bit slightly, and that fixes the issue because now the road does not go over buildings anymore. So that's how you can find issues and try to also fix them when you are using the ID editor. So I'll just go ahead and save my changes. So I've added a few things. I've modified this road, and I've also added created a building. So whenever you are saving your changes, it's always important to add a change set comment so that other people can know what you are trying to add to the map. So adding change set comment is always very important. Yeah, so there are several reasons why you should do this. One, out of courtesy to fellow mappers, for them to know what you are trying to add to the map, but also to avoid misunderstandings because this is like a collaborative map. Other people are also editing it. So when you add like a very good change set comment, it will inform other people what you are trying to map, but also as a memory for you when you go back to your change sets to know what you were trying to add at a specific point in time. So yeah, try to make your change set good. A good change set comment, for example, in my change set here would be, I've added a building and also fixed a road using Bing imagery. That tells the person who will see that change set what I was trying to add to the map. So don't add comments like, yeah, I'm just helping to map in Kiribati. Yes, you are helping, but that comment does not tell about the edit that you made to the map. So always make the comment about the edit that you made. So I'll just go ahead and add my comment here. Added a building. And realigned uncorrected road. Using Bing. So that tells the person who sees this change set comment what I tried to add to the map. And it tells that it's very descriptive. There's also other options here. If you are a new person just starting to map and you want to other people also to review your edits, you can check this button when uploading so that other people can also check your edits and give you feedback. So I'm going ahead and uploading these changes to the map. Yeah, so that's it. The changes are now on OpenStreetMap, and if you check like this change set, it will show you like who added this, where, and what was the change set comment. So that's how the change set comment appears on the map. So one more thing I want to show us is doesn't show an error, but also always comes up when you are starting to map. So I'm just going to go ahead and try to draw a building here. So you may be drawing a road, a building, and you want to tag it. So as you can see here, because it is a building, an area that is selected, is giving us options for area features, because it can be a building, can be a playground, can be a water body. So it's asking me to choose the right feature. But sometimes this happens. You have finished drawing your building and you want to give it a tag, and you realize the options that are coming up here are not like area options. So why is this happening? It's happening because if you look at my feature that I have just drawn right now, it's a node which is blinking. And why is that? Because I've selected that node, the point, instead of selecting the area. So that's why instead of showing me options for area, it's giving me options for points. So to be able to fix that, I just have to select again. So right now I've selected the area. Now here it's telling me area. So if I click on area here, it will now give me options for area features. And I will just go ahead and choose building. Of course, I don't know which type of building it is, so I'll not specify. I'll just leave it as building, yes. And yeah, and that's it. I'll now go ahead and save my changes and add a comment. Added a building in Tarawa. Yeah, I can also specify using Bing, although I can also add like more fields and say, okay, can you quote the source as well that I have used? For example, the aerial imagery. So when I upload my changes, it also quote the imagery that I had used when uploading my changes. So I'll go ahead and upload this. Yeah, and that's it that I wanted to show us. I don't know, Russ, if there is any questions for me to answer.
Thanks, Jeffrey. I don't think so. I think we've been kind of answering them as they come along in text, and I don't think there's any that you necessarily need to explain, but if you want to just look through the Q&A panel, and yeah, if there's something you want to talk about further, feel free. Otherwise, I'm going to throw out one more poll. This one is about sort of the type of mapper you are, and kind of goes hand in hand with how you learned about the webinar and why you're here. But with that, yeah, we'll hang out for another couple minutes and take any last questions. There was a direct question to us about the recording. So we are broadcasting this to YouTube Live, which actually also records it and puts it right into our YouTube channel. I think it's just like youtube.com/hotosm or something like that, or just search for HOT-OSM on YouTube and you'll be able to find it. But other than that, I also just want to thank the panelists, the presenters again, Michael, Ralph, and Jeffrey for a great, very informative hour and a half. And there is one question coming up, Jeffrey, I'll read it to you real quick. If I click to check errors and issues, that corrects all? If I'm reading that correctly?
Yes, so yeah, if you click on check issues, this will not it will not fix the errors automatically. It will just highlight them for you so that you can fix them. So like, for example, I've just clicked on issues here and I can see there are several issues here. That means I have to go one by one and try to fix them. And these may be issues from other mappers. They not be issues from you, but yeah, you can still go on and fix them. But you can also choose to see your own issues in your own edits. So right now it's showing everything, including it's just checking everything in my view. But yeah, the issues are not fixed automatically. You have to go in, select one, the map will zoom to that feature and you'll have to fix it. So right now it is blinking here where the issue is. I know it's an issue because this path is overlapping a building. So just moving it slightly there, it has just yeah, made it correct. So yeah, the issues are not fixed automatically. You have to go in and fix them manually.
Great. There's another question about imagery. I'll quickly take this one, Jeffrey, and you can add to it if you want. And also Ralph kind of, I think everybody touched on a little bit, was when we choose an imagery for a particular project, typically whoever's creating that project goes through and makes that decision based on a number of factors, whether that's the clarity of the image, the recency, a variety of things, and you're more than welcome to change. And it's a tough thing to try to like teach and definitely to put into the text instructions that people, we still encourage people to look at other imagery for a comparison. But yes, when you're doing a mapathon and you're trying to coordinate a lot of people, oftentimes it's just better to stick with the imagery that's been selected so that everybody's sort of on the same page. Because really what it comes down to, and Jeffrey talked about the offset issue, what it comes down to for me when I'm trying to do like a disaster response is that no matter what imagery we're using, everybody uses the same so that the offset is the same, and that we're not trying to chase individual tasks that have used a different offset than the rest of the tasks. Same thing can kind of go for the recency of imagery, right? If we're trying to get the most up-to-date picture of the area, then we may be choosing an imagery that's not as clear or has bad color, those kind of things, but it is the most recent. So it really depends on what we're trying to capture. But yeah, good question. It's oftentimes, yeah, you will see very large differences in offset, or the Bing imagery will be from like 2010, 2012, and the Maxar imagery will be from 2016 or 2017. And in those handful of years, a lot has been built, or sometimes when we're looking in rural Africa, it actually does happen where villages have moved because water resources have run out or become scarce, or other resources. So yeah, it's always best to go with what we ask or what the task requires or requests, but sometimes it's also good to teach people that they can look at the other imagery just to get a sense. Maybe the clarity of one imagery will help them be able to recognize buildings in the more recent imagery or something like that. Anybody else want to jump in on that one, or?
Yeah, I think you covered it very well, Russ. Maybe just one thing to show quickly is, yeah, if you're interested in like seeing when the imagery was taken, it's available like on Bing Imagery. Yeah, you can always go to background and then show background panel, and that will allow you to show like tiles, and yeah, you can see, yeah, when that imagery was taken. So this is Bing, which is 2010 for this area, but also Maxai is much newer, although it doesn't show the exact date, but it's much newer than Bing. And always, sometimes I have to choose between whether you want like more clear imagery or more recent imagery. So there's always like a trade-off when choosing which imagery to use for a particular project.
Great. Yeah, Ralph, did you have something to add there? I heard you.
No, sorry. I don't have something to add there.
Okay. So there's another question. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just about to answer that last question I see here on the panel. Do you get notified when someone corrects your edits? Well, it depends. The only chance is if someone makes a comment on that tasking manager project where you made that edit, and whether you see that comment depends on your notification settings. That means when you log into tasks.hotosm.org, you go to your profile and then scroll down a bit. There are a couple of options about how you can receive notifications, whether you will receive them if they mention you directly, or whether you would like to get all notifications on the task where you contributed to. So depending on these settings, you will receive an email, but that's the only way. If someone silently corrects your edit and does not mention anything in a project comment, then of course, there is no way you will be notified.
Great. Yeah, I'm just looking through. I think that covers all the questions. Sorry. Yeah, so Jeffrey, if you don't mind, actually, I can probably just take over the screen sharing real quick. So yeah, just wanted to make sure we sort of recap here. So yeah, today we talked about the ID editor on a very basic level. There's definitely more we can talk about, and we do have a plan for a advanced ID session as well. So just to recap, how to get to ID, the overview of what you're looking at when you've opened up the editor and are about to start mapping, the basic editing techniques, handling the general errors and warnings that come up, mostly when you're uploading and saving, but also in some other scenarios as you're mapping. But yeah, and can't say enough. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you for everybody that showed up. I think I even learned some things on ID. I don't use it very often. I think somebody earlier on asked what's better, JOSM or ID, and I think it's a good one to just quickly verbalize a bit. And it's really preference to me, is how I understand. There's not really a one's better than the other, so to speak. There's some things that ID does better than JOSM and vice versa. One being, obviously ID is built into browsers. So if you're not online, you can't use ID, but in the case of JOSM, you can actually use JOSM offline. So a lot of the work that HOT does remotely out in the field, we will utilize JOSM and those offline capabilities. But I mean, for myself, I fire up ID if I need to do something quicker, and I just want to add a building or correct something real quick. and then if I'm going to sort of sit down for a good hour or so mapping, I'll definitely open up JOSM and use the some of the built-in tools that are only available in JOSM. So yeah, that was a great question. I think Michael, I think you answered that via text very well. We talked about in the LearnOSM module of, why would you pick one or the other? There are some others out there. Potlatch 2 is Flash-based, so it's kind of going to go by the wayside here when Flash is no longer supported, but it's been a very good and robust online editor for many years. There's a ton of other editors when you get into like mobile mapping. I mean, you can, for both iOS and Android, you can find mobile editors that work on your phone. They might, obviously it's kind of hard to do most of the mapping via phone that you saw demonstrated today. Even drawing a building is kind of a chore on some of the mobile editors, but they are out there. Moving up into tablets makes it a little bit easier, and I can't tell you which ones are really designed for tablet editing. Maybe, I don't know if any of the panelists are familiar with those, but there's definitely options out there for basically any device and platform that you are using, and it's just a matter of learning the tips and tricks for each one. And I think back to how I started is it's really down to preference on does ID just feel better for you versus JOSM is maybe a little over the top and too much to remember all the shortcuts and all the tools and things, or maybe you're into the being able to use these fancy plugins and different map paint styles, so you can make the data look different, and that kind of stuff doesn't quite exist in ID yet. But also, as I started at the beginning of the webinar, ID continues to be pretty rapidly developed, and the developers are adding more and more features all the time. So I would expect that some of the things that we think of as being JOSM exclusive today may not be JOSM exclusive in the future. With that, I think we're just about done. Does any of the panelists have a last minute thing they want to talk about? All right. If
No,
not,
nothing from me.
Thanks, Rob.
Further comments from me?
Michael, thanks. Jeffrey, you good?
Yep, nothing from me. Thank you.
All right. Well, this concludes the ID Basics webinar. Again, thank you for attending, and thanks to the panelists. Next up, like I said, we do have an ID Advanced webinar, but it'll probably be a few months down the road. In the meantime, Ralph actually does a couple times a month, actually does these validation webinars. They're specific to JOSM, so if you're if you're not familiar with JOSM, it'll probably be, I mean, it might still be good to attend, but it's going to be a lot of stuff that you won't be familiar with, because it kind of skips over the basics of JOSM, and it assumes that you kind of know a little bit about the tool before teaching you how to do validation. But yeah, that's the next step, and that's actually tomorrow, right, Ralph? Am I correct on the date there?
Yes, you're quite correct. It is tomorrow, and the exact time is based on UTC is 2:30 p.m. UTC. So it's in the afternoon, Universal Time, 2:30.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, and if you see also the bit.ly link down there at the bottom, it's just bit.ly/HOTWG all caps. That will get you to our working group calendar, where we try to put all these webinars up. I'm pretty sure most of the webinars are on that calendar, but also our humanitarian OpenStreetMap team working groups, if you're interested in getting more involved with a team like the training working group that puts these webinars together. So with that, I think we're a little over time already. So thank you again. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and have a great day, everybody.